right, I think we're live. I think we have started a Load the Box live. It looks like we've been live for about 50 seconds, actually. So, always fun, and a good time doing Load the Box. But as we're settling in here, I'm trying to double check and make sure that we're live.
It says from the tweet, it says video unavailable. Watch this video on YouTube. Playback on other websites has been disabled by video owner.
Well, we are the video owner, Jack.
That's true.
So what in the hell is going on here? And I still don't know if we're live, so if I need to do my little, oh, well, it says Load the Box is live right now. I'm trying to double check and make sure that's us on YouTube, live. I've put on a lot of weight since high school. All right. Do you want to try and do this show?
Yeah, we can. I'd like to see if we could get it up everywhere else. I'm not sure why it's not.
Let me
doing that.
Do a jank solution. Looks like we have 2 viewers. If you are currently viewing this, I am so sorry. Log in. Almost just asked Jack. Oh, wait, hang on.
Well, it looks like it just popped up live on Facebook.
Yeah, I just got that as well. Which I'm going to go ahead and share this. Oh, that'll give me really bad feedback if I'm not careful.
Might be working on Twitter now as well.
Yeah, I was about to say, if I have to try to do something crazy, I can, but...
Although it's not quite plain yet. Yeah, it still says unavailable on Twitter, and then it kicks you to YouTube.
Got it. Okay, give me 1 second. Let's post this up on Twitter, and then we'll get going. Just have to pull up. I got logged out of Twitter on my thing, and I can't exactly
I might be lagging too. It's like kind of behind on
your audio.
Well, just when I'm watching on my phone, like you're moving.
Oh yeah. It gives it a delay. So if you watch it like after the fact, you'll be like 5 to 10 seconds behind. Nope.
It just shows me that you're moving normal and I like freeze. So I don't know if that's an issue or.
I don't know. Let's see. Oh no, you're moving on my YouTube feed.
Perfect.
All right, so I'm posting a link to the YouTube on our Twitter really quick. Because I don't think we have Periscope set up, but let me get this posted, and then we will talk about some damn quarterbacks as well as how bad this football team is. So, who we should draft! Exclamation point, send tweet. All right, everybody, welcome in. We've been live for 5 dang minutes. And we're finally going to talk about the Minnesota Vikings. I am Jordan Hawthorne, host of Load the Box. I'm joined, as always, by Jack_H_Day. Jack, this has been the worst season in the history of the Vikings, maybe ever. This has just been a train wreck of a year. Falcons come in 0-5. Vikings come in at 1-4. And they both leave with 1 win. Before we talk about quarterbacks and drafting and all of the exciting stuff that we want to talk about, make me relive this pain that is being a Vikings fan.
Yeah, well, it was ugly, obviously. I don't know if there's a better way to say it other than that. Sorry, my mom is FaceTiming me right now, which is thanks, Mom. Sure you got the Facebook notification, but yeah, it was ugly. And in my game recap that I wrote on KFan, the only real way to describe this loss in my mind was embarrassing. This was an embarrassing loss for Mike Zimmer. It was an embarrassing performance out of Kirk Cousins. Yes,
yeah, well,
he went out and he put up on fantasy. If you have a fantasy owner, he threw for 343 yards and 3 touchdowns, but that came after he threw 3 interceptions.
Thanks, Mom.
In the first half, which was a career high. And I just wanted to start the show out by saying,
and
it's fair
recap that
if
I
you're a
wrote on
Vikings
K-Pan.
fan. It's
The
okay
only
that you
real
thought
way
that Kirk Cousins
to
was the
describe
answer.
this
It's
loss
okay
in
if you
my
want to go
mind
back
was
to
embarrassing.
2018 and
This was
say,
an
you know what?
embarrassing loss for Mike
That was the
Zimmer. It was
right
an
call,
embarrassing
taking a
performance
chance
out
on
of
a
Kirk
guy because
Cousins.
we
Yes,
haven't
yeah, well,
been
it
able
was
to
ugly.
find our
But
franchise
honestly,
guy.
I
And
don't know.
frankly,
As a fantasy owner,
I was
threw for
on that
300
boat. I was all
yards,
for the
solid
sign, and I was
touchdown.
still
That
for
can't
it
be
after
true right
his
now.
first 2
3
seasons. I think he
interceptions. Thanks,
played
Mom.
very
In the
well
first
last
half,
season,
which
and
was
we've
at the
seen a
very high
completely
end of the
different
season. Yeah, it was
version
it was
of Kirk
ugly.
Cousins now in 2020. He played that performance on Sunday. It was not like the typical Kirk Cousins. He's turning the ball over way more frequently than we're used to, and it's frustrating to watch because we have a guy named Justin Jefferson who's absolutely tearing the league apart as a rookie, and you see all these numbers of how good he's been through the first 6 games. He didn't even really play that much in the first 2 games, or he didn't get the ball thrown to him, I should say. Something that we've seen with Irv Smith Jr. as well, where he's starting to get the ball thrown in his direction a little bit more, and good things are coming from that. So it was a frustrating loss. Obviously, a lot of people are pissed about the defensive performance, and rightfully so. But the defense, when you go out and you throw 3 interceptions in the first half, it's not an easy deficit to come back from. And frankly, that's what happened. So we're going to talk about some quarterbacks that are going to hopefully enter the draft, all of them. I know I've seen people, I think it was Roddy White, I want to say, former Falcon himself, said if I was Trevor Lawrence and the Jets don't win a game, I would for sure go back to Clemson for my final year. And I don't know if I disagree with him on that. We've seen what Adam Gase has done with the New York Jets. It's kind of a dumpster fire over there, and they haven't done anything successful in I don't know how long, but there's a lot of fun quarterback prospects that jump off the screen. The Big Ten starting back up. Pac-12 is going to be starting back up in a few weeks after that. So there's going to be a lot of college football games on, and we're going to kind of go over a few of those prospects that if you're a Gophers fan and the Gophers aren't playing during that time slot, we're going to list some names that it's going to be worth your while to pay attention to.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun show. This is unfortunately, this is becoming kind of like a season-long tradition of, hey, let's talk about quarterbacks, once a year, and then Cousins is going to end up looking good and probably fool enough of the fan base to where we won't draft a quarterback high this year. We'll take another, 7th-round flyer on a guy like Nate Stanley, and then, just roll the dice again next season. I just want to say, I don't want to talk about the Falcons game at all. We have to because it's like, a Minnesota Vikings show, but I really just want to get straight into the 2021 NFL draft, talking about quarterback prospects, breaking down film, looking at all this stuff. I'm really excited about it, but before we talk about anything, let me go ahead and tell you to head over. Let's see, is it that way? I believe it's that way. Manscaped.com. Use code LOADTHEBOX. Grab yourself 20% off. I have here in front of me, I don't have my razor because it resides in my bathroom on its charger, but I have here some ball deodorant as well as some crop revival. This stuff smells really good. We're gonna talk about the Manscaped spot a little bit later in the show, as it is it was given to us by Jack's dad, Tom, where we should be using Manscaped at. But I wanted to give them a quick shout out, tell you to use that code LOADTHEBOX to grab yourself 20% off, as well as use the code MANSCAPEDPOD and get free shipping on that. But we will talk about that a little bit more later in the show. Wanted to quickly tell you to go follow the show on Twitter at LTB Vikings. One more time, at LTB Vikings. Also, follow Jack on Twitter at Jack_H_day. One more time, at Jack_H_day. And then follow myself on Twitter at JHawthorne16. One more time, that's JHawthorne16. All right. I'm going to give a very quick breakdown of the Atlanta game. And then I'm going to be ready to just talk about quarterbacks. Kirk Cousins from the first snap looked bad. He looked like, I think he was, I don't know how to describe it, but like there's an image of what Vikings fans think Kirk Cousins is. The ones that don't like him. There are some people who think he can do no wrong, but there's an image that people like me have of Cousins, and that's it. It is this game where the offensive line isn't playing well. He's, getting stripped, he's getting sacked, he's getting hit, he's making just awful passes when he is throwing the ball. And it's just, it just adds on to the list of reasons why we need to replace him. Cousins looked bad. Atlanta pretty much dared Alexander Madison to to beat them, and we were unable to get him going. It didn't really, thinking back to the game, it didn't feel like we ever tried to get Madison going. It felt like we came out and just said from the get-go, we're going to throw the ball, and we're going to throw the ball a lot. And we were just unable to get that going because of Cousins' bad performance. Also, Ezra Cleveland didn't look great in that guard spot. But, it just is what it is. And then the defense, you're going up against Atlanta, and I don't know how you get mad at a defense that is, we know they're bad. We know they're not good. They're very young. How are we supposed to get mad at the defense for not being able to cover Julio Jones and Calvin Ridley and whatever his name is? His last name is Gage. And they have a good tight end whose name I can't remember. Like they have so many, Todd Gurley on the offense. They have so many weapons on that side of the ball. It would have been nice to have seen a couple big plays come up, or even a couple big plays be taken away. That Julio touchdown on either, I think it was Fourth and Show, and they went for it and they converted and scored like a 60-yard touchdown. Would have been nice to have had that, had that touchdown back to us, but it is what it is. All in all, this looked like a bad football team, and that's really all I got. So we don't look like a good football team. Atlanta also doesn't seem to be a great football team. It just seemed like two bad teams, and Atlanta ended up edging us out. Jack, I'll pass it over to you, to give us kind of a your breakdown, and then we can talk about what we want to talk about, man.
Yeah, and I kind of went over it already earlier, and I'll probably use the word embarrassment or ugly about 50 times in the next couple minutes or so, but that's all it was. I mean, it's obvious. It's so obvious when you don't have Dalvin Cook on the field because he makes this offense so much better. And I know there's the people that say don't pay running backs, do pay running backs. I think we saw on Sunday the not having the presence of Dalvin Cook. You can stack the box way easier, and I just feel like, I mean, Alexander Mattison, he's a very good backup running back, but he's not on that same level as Dalvin Cook. We can't pretend like he is because Dalvin Cook is an absolute star, and there's so many pieces on this offense, so many talented playmakers now with the rising of Justin Jefferson. Adam Thielen's still playing at an elite level. Irv Smith Jr. is starting to break out a little bit more like we expected him to do earlier on in the season, and frankly, our quarterback play is what's holding this offense back. I shouldn't say just quarterback play because the guard position has been atrocious as well. But there were plays on Sunday where Kirk Cousins had plenty of time in the pocket. And I think you're going to see a reoccurring theme with the list of quarterbacks that we've brought up. Yes, I don't think a mobile quarterback is going to be great behind an absolute atrocious offensive line with how bad this guard play has been. But Kirk Cousins had time on several of his bad throws, and he just plays scared. I don't know what it is. He seems like he gets scared in the pocket. There was one instance, I don't remember what play it was, but he had time. If he would have backed up and felt the pressure coming, there was a pocket to the left. He could have stepped up, and it was either Irv Smith or Justin Jefferson were wide open down the center of the field. And it's frustrating to watch because you go out and you see a guy like Trevor Lawrence. You see these kids in college that are they're playing with their heart on their sleeve and they're playing with emotion. And we haven't seen that since Case Keenum. And I'm not going to say that we should have kept Case Keenum over Kirk Cousins because I've already made myself clear. I think the Kirk Cousins signing at the time was the right call, but I'm not quite sure about that extension that happened because I think we're starting to see it bite this team in the butt a little bit. But we just haven't seen that. Case Keenum brought that energy. Sam Bradford, he did not have energy. I had the same conversation before we were doing this podcast. I wrote articles about this. I want to see Sam Bradford play pissed off, and I want to see the same thing out of Kirk Cousins, and we haven't seen it this year, and it led to him having another poor game on Sunday. So I think that kind of wraps everything up. I don't want to rant on too much about this game either, and if you're a Vikings fan, I'm sure you don't want to hear too much about it either because, like I said, it was ugly. We're starting to see that we have some shiny toys on this offense, but we're being held back at a few positions that have kind of been ignored by this front office for the last several years. That's more towards the guard position. Obviously, they don't ignore a guy like Kirk Cousins because they paid him, but I'm starting to wonder if I was wrong in 2018, if I was wrong in thinking that this was the right idea. But one reoccurring theme with this team in my lifetime is we haven't been able to find that franchise guy at the quarterback position. You had a rental year or two out of Brett Favre, obviously. Then you get Kirk Cousins. You've had Sam Bradford. The list goes on and on and on. You had Dante Culpepper when we were really young, but we just haven't been able to find that guy where we go out and we snag a guy in the draft and he turns into a long-term franchise guy. And this franchise has been missing that for decades, frankly. And I think it's time. Like, we're seeing it now. Kirk Cousins just went out and had one of the worst halves of his career. We don't have anybody that can go in behind Kirk Cousins. We have a guy named Sean Mannion who, no offense to Sean Mannion, is probably a little bit of a worse version of Kirk Cousins. He can run the offense great, but he's not going to go out and make any plays. So it's frustrating. I want a younger guy. Even if that means Kirk Cousins, we have to wait it out a year or two, let him play next year, let someone like what we saw in Miami with Ryan Fitzpatrick, with Tua now being announced as a starter, do something like that. We need someone. And I've said this last year when I was still fully on when I was fully on the Cousins train still. I said it's time to draft a quarterback because we didn't have a backup quarterback. And now look what we're in now. We're in a mess. And frankly, that's why we're talking about quarterbacks on the show instead of diving into the Atlanta Falcons game.
Yeah, it's one I want to shout out to, and I'm sorry if I mispronounce your name. I'm awful with names, and I also talk a little funny. Terrell Stewart, bringing up that we didn't get a chance to give Madison the ball after we gave Atlanta a 21-0 lead. It is difficult to establish a run game when you are down by that much. That's a very good point. And then she talks about the extension, saying we had two options: sign Case, sign Coke. Keenum also got benched 5 games into the next season. But my argument to that would be, I don't even remember who Keenum went to in that offseason. Do you, Jack?
It was Denver.
That's who it was, yeah. I would argue that Denver did not have the weapons at the time that the Vikings had. Where in Minnesota, he was going to have a Dalvin Cook coming back off of an injury. He was going to have Thielen and Diggs and Rudolph, as well as almost all of that defense, and you would have gotten him so much cheaper. And then also bringing up the extension was given to Coke to sign others, and yes, it was, but on the same token, it also made it to where on the third day of the league year, in 2021, he gets $35 million guaranteed fully for 2022. So yes, the extension was to save money this year, but it's just delaying the inevitable. Well, Cousins is going to get his money, and I think this brings up, and I'm just going to say this, Jack, I'll give you a second while I pull up my notes on quarterbacks, then we can talk about quarterbacks in this draft class, which is historically deep. I think I'm calling San Francisco tonight and saying, look, we'll eat his salary next year. You will get a backup quarterback in Kirk Cousins, and we will pay for him next season. You can have him, give us a 5th-round pick. We'll stout Nate Stanley or Jake Browning for the rest of the season. It's time to give up. It's time to he cannot be on the team next season, or else we have to pay him $35 million in 2022. It's time to give up on Coke. It is literally, we either give up on him now, or we accept him and his salary is on this team for another two years. There is no, Alex Smith, Patrick Mahomes, well, Cousins can stout next year, and then we can get rid of him and stout Mahomes. No, his contract isn't set up that way. His contract is set up, we either get rid of him now, or, at the end of this season, we either cut him now, or trade him now, or we accept that he's our guy for 2 years, and even if we stout a rookie quarterback, we don't get the advantage of stouting a rookie quarterback, which is his cheap as hell salary, because Cousins is going to be on the books making, again, $35 million to throw 15 interceptions to the Atlanta freaking Falcons. So that's kind of all I'll say about it. It's time to give Cousins the old snip. And Jack, I'll let you either take us into the quarterbacks or give some closing thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, do you want to do game balls for this game with how poor it was? I think we still probably should.
Because your dad had that really, really good idea. And I've been thinking about a way to plug this. So we are going to do some game balls. And the game ball section of the show, the Load the Box game balls, are now brought to you by Manscaped. There's no higher compliment here at Load the Box than receiving a game ball from Jack or I, and there's no higher compliment in your life than having a woman compliment the scent or length of your pubic hair. I'm telling you, this show was never supposed to be about men's genitals, but when you get money from Manscaped, you got to talk about men's genitals. So I'm telling you right now, I mean, this ball deodorant is game changing. Jack, I'm not going to ask you if you use yours. I'm not going to go into too much detail about it, but I will say you can't nick yourself with this Oizo, guys. You can't deny how good this stuff smells. And like I said, there's no higher compliment than getting that, man, you smell good from a lady at any point for whatever reason you're getting your balls sniffed. But that's the Manscaped plug for the show. Use code LOADTHEBOX to get yourself 20% off at manscaped.com. You can also use the code MANSCAPEDPOD, as in podcast, so Manscaped Pod, and that's going to get you free shipping. I know we're in tough times right now, but Christmas is it is raging this way. It makes a great stocking stuffer to just throw a razor in there or throw some ball sack deodorant in there. It's great stuff, man, I'm telling you. So one more time, code LOADTHEBOX gets you 20%. Manscaped Pod gets you free shipping. Go on out. One last thing. Terrell Stewart says to cut Cousins in March, and we'd be freed up in 2022, but have to pay the additional cap hit next year of like $12 million while starting a rookie quarterback. And to that I say I agree, and I'll take it. We're gonna draft the guy in the first round, so think of it like we drafted a guy in the first round. And his first year was expensive, but his second through fifth years are gonna be a steal. And that first year, we shouldn't be wanting to contend anyway. You don't really win Super Bowls with rookie quarterbacks. So, off of that, game balls for this game. My game ball is going to go. On the offensive side of the ball, I think it's easy to say it's Jefferson, but I'll go
100%.
I'll go with Irv Smith, because Irv Smith had a big play. A lot of people freaking out on Twitter about how we're finally letting Irv Smith Jr. kind of run with the ball and get his opportunities and cook with it. So I'll go with Irv Smith for my offensive ball. On the defense, it's tough. It's very tough. I think I'd have to go with a guy like Eric Kendricks, who seems to be kind of the only bright spot on this defense that we can see right now. I know Jeff Gladney, has some has had some highs in his run support game, but his coverage is still hit and miss. So, those are my two game balls.
Yeah, and I'll take the easy one and get us out. I don't want to talk about this Atlanta game any longer, quite frankly. So I'm just going to say Justin Jefferson. Obviously, he's tearing it up, 166 yards and 2 touchdowns. A lot of those they all came in the second half, obviously, with how poor the first half was. But it's fun seeing the Vikings have he's a 21-year-old wide receiver. It replaces Stephon Diggs, who a lot of people were worried about because he is so talented and he's finding success elsewhere in Buffalo. But Justin Jefferson, he's been impressive for the last 4 weeks. So I think that's the easy choice there. And I actually am going to give my defensive game ball to Jeff Gladney. He had 8 tackles, and he's just showing that physicality. I wrote an article about it, and people were kind of tearing me apart on it because I said the Vikings' first-round picks look like long-term starters, which I think both Jeff Gladney and Cameron Dancer are really going to turn things around here down the road. I think that's what Mike Zimmer drafted them for. That's what he's known for, is grooming these cornerbacks. But yes, they got burnt a couple times in coverage, and that's going to happen. But Jeff Gladney had one of the best hustle plays I've seen. And it's hard to see this when your team's playing so poorly. But he hustled down the field, and he forced a fumble on Brian Hill. And it was a good-looking play, recovered by Eric Wilson. And to take your comment one step further, Jeff Gladney over the last, 4 weeks now has been the number 1 rated cornerback in run support, and it's a grade over 90. So he reminds me, I don't want to say Antoine Winfield-like, obviously, because that's going to taint his name a little bit because he wasn't getting burnt so frequently in coverage. But when he came down and he was a willing run supporter, and I'm seeing that in both Jeff Gladney and Cameron Dancer. Yes, they got burnt a couple times. They're going up against Julio Jones. They've had some very tough matchups so far with the limited preseason. I know that excuse gets old. There are no preseason and limited offseason. I know the excuse gets old because it happened for everyone. but their run support, you cannot teach that. You cannot teach that in a cornerback, the willingness to come down and lay a pop. And I absolutely love that. If you go back and listen to our draft show this March or whenever we did those shows, I was looking at cornerbacks for their physical traits, and Jeff Gladney was on the top of that list. He's got that dog mentality, and we're starting to see that in the run game, and I think the coverage is going to come down the road.
Yeah, it's got to, or else the Vikings are going to be playing a lot of these games where it just seems like the defense is one ply toilet paper, Swiss cheese, whatever you want to call it. So, let's talk about some quarterbacks. Are you ready?
Yes, sir. I'm ready.
Right, so, I will start us off. We're going to say it, even though consensus, everyone agrees with us. This is not a hot take at all. Trevor Lawrence is a very good football player, and if somehow he is on the board when the Vikings pick and the Vikings don't take him, I think the city of Minnesota Minnesota itself will just sink. It's like everybody always says, like, California's going to break off and float away someday and go be a part of Japan. Minnesota might jump up and leave the United States. This place will go nuts. It's not going to happen. The Jets are the worst team in football. I don't see a game on the Jets' schedule where they win a game, especially whenever they're pretty much having a fire sale. They're getting rid of Le'Veon Bell. Sam Darnold is hurt, and Joe Flacco's playing. It's the Jets' pick to mess up. Now, it would be a very Jets thing to win 5 games this year, like go on a little hot streak at the end of the year and end up missing out. But I think they'll get in Trevor Lawrence. I mean, what don't you like about Trevor Lawrence? He has, he's incredible. He's quick. He's fast. He's like 6'6", golden locks, big arm, accurate, throws with anticipation, all of the things you want out of a quarterback. He's got it. Not to mention, he also put up a hell of a performance against Ohio State in the semifinals last season, where he was down, I want to say 2 or 3 possessions, and he showed grit. And it's kind of like, that was a big knock on him. It's like, well, he's stomping Georgia Tech 100-0 every week. How tough is he? He showed that he can come back from being down, 2 or 3 possessions. Trevor Lawrence is the best quarterback prospect since Andrew Luck. I don't think that's a hot take. That's pretty much the consensus take. Jack, go ahead and add what you'd like to add about Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah, I think there's going to be a reoccurring theme with all these quarterbacks that we're going to bring up. I don't know if any of them are 6'6", but I think you're going to hear Jordan and myself kind of go over these quarterbacks. And there's a lot. I don't know if it's just the consensus where it's taking over college football as a whole, but it's also starting to take over at the NFL level. And that mobility aspect in a quarterback is so important. And we're seeing the lack of it on the Vikings, and we're seeing it hurt us. Granted, the offensive line has not been great, but you need mobility. I mean, Case Keenum was not a great quarterback. His arm was not great, but his legs were. He was willing to step up in the pocket. He was willing to take a hit. And the Vikings, they need someone like that because we don't currently have that on this roster.
Yeah, and honestly, I don't know. This could just be something that popped into my head. The facts might not back this up. You look at 3 of the worst teams in football on paper. Joe Flacco has been playing for the Jets. Kirk Cousins has been playing for the Vikings. Matt Ryan for the Falcons. The pattern with these quarterbacks is that they all don't really like to evade pressure. Now, granted, Deshaun Watson is also one of the worst on one of the worst teams in football. So maybe that is just kind of me cherry picking stats, but it does seem like the NFL is moving to, you don't have to have blazing Lamar Jackson speed, but you have to be able to at least evade a little bit of pressure. Like you said, Keenum, I can't tell you how many times he got blitzed up the middle, and he did that little get down low, the get small drill, and he evaded a sack, and because he had so much talent around him, he was able to make a play. I think that's the kind of quarterback the Vikings need. And Jack, I'm going to let you go first with your quarterback, because I think your quarterback, your first one, is going to be the second guy taken this year, and he might be taken, number 2, maybe number 3 overall.
Yeah, I think it's still a little bit of a stretch. At least I thought that heading into Sunday, and then after that Falcons performance, I think anything's possible. I don't think the Vikings are anywhere near the level of bad that the Jets are on, but the Vikings are not a good football team right now. They just lost to a team that came in who just fired their GM, they just fired their head coach, and they got embarrassed, like I said earlier. So the next, it's not out of reach. And I think if this guy's on the board, I think I am putting Justin Fields. It's not a 1A, 1B because Trevor Lawrence, like you said, he's a generational guy. He's an Andrew Luck comparable where it's just like no one's getting these grades coming out of college, and he's a freak quarterback. Justin Fields was one of the top recruits coming out of high school as well, and I kind of like stick to quarterbacks that were on QB1 because it was fun watching through high school. If you haven't seen, I think it's season 2 of QB1. Justin Fields was on it, and it followed him throughout his senior year down in Georgia, I want to say, is where he played his high school football. So, but just kind of touching on him, he's 6'3", 223 pounds. He's mobile as well. He did a lot of damage with his legs for Ohio State, but he's also very, very accurate and smart with the football. I have his stats written down here. Last year, he threw 67% completion percentage, 3,273 yards for 41 touchdowns and just 3 interceptions, while running for 484 yards and 10 touchdowns on the ground. Like this guy, he might not be in that same level as Trevor Lawrence, but I've seen some people, I don't remember exactly what site I was reading up on him, but someone was essentially saying, it might have been an NFL scout that said, we see Justin Fields comparable to a bigger version of Deshaun Watson. And if the Vikings could get a bigger version of Deshaun Watson on their roster right now, I would 100% take that. And I mean, Justin Fields is just one of those guys where we didn't know if we were going to get to see him play or not. He was advocating for playing out this last season. He was the one that tweeted out and I think he had a petition that he started, actually. He's got the heart. He wears his heart on his sleeve, and he wants to play football. And I want a guy in Minnesota that's like that, that's going to come up here, and he's going to give it 120% every single snap. And, oh, boy, putting Justin Fields with Delvin Cook, Irv Smith Jr., Justin Jefferson, and Adam Thielen, that could be a scary offense for the next couple of years. And I think Justin Fields is slowly becoming one of my favorite quarterbacks, not only in this draft class, but over the last several years. And I think we're going to see that when I think Ohio State plays Nebraska week 1, which is going to be fun to watch because I think Justin Fields is going to have a field day, no pun intended. But yeah, that's about everything on him. Just a couple other notes I had written down just from watching him. He's very dynamic, like I said, accurate. He's got a strong arm, and he's aggressive. And the Vikings haven't had that. So Justin Fields is probably one of my top prospects that I would love to land in Minnesota in the 2021 draft.
Yeah, you 100% meant to make that pun. And it's okay. You don't have to lie about it. It seems like Fields, and I don't know why. Maybe this is because Dwayne Haskins hasn't looked great in Washington. He scales me because he goes to Ohio State, and I don't know why, but Ohio State doesn't necessarily have a track record of producing superstar quarterbacks. Now, neither does Clemson, and they gave us Deshaun Watson, and they're about to give us Trevor Lawrence. So maybe Ohio State starts off with Justin Fields, and then they start turning into a quarterback factory. But I'm more intrigued by the following prospect: North Dakota State University.
You're going to come out and say you don't know how a kid from Ohio State's going to do, and then proceed to talk to me about a quarterback from NDSU.
I have watched a quarterback from NDSU lead his team to a very good record, only to blow his knee out and someone else win a Super Bowl with said team. So
that was Nick Foles' Super Bowl, not I can't admit that it was Carson Wentz. It was Nick Foles that won that Super Bowl for him.
I think they were like 7-1. Or 9-1 when he blew his knee out. Carson Wentz is a good football player, and I don't think he's all that in a bag of potato chips. I think he's meh. But honestly, if you told me right now, straight up swap Cousins for Wentz, I'd take that in a heartbeat. And I like Trey Lance a lot. Trey Lance has a big arm, very mobile. So this is what scares me about him. Like you said, he plays at North Dakota State University, which is an FCS school, which is he's not going up against that good of competition. He's really Justin Fields is going up against Wisconsin and Minnesota and Penn State, and then they play like Bama and Clemson in the playoff, and he looks good. I have seen Trey Lance just throw the ball all over these FCS schools or FBS. I don't remember which one's which, but like all over these mediocre colleges. And he had an entire season without a pick last year, and he had this incredible, I think it was like 28 touchdowns to 0 interceptions season. And I'm hesitant to say that I want him because of that North Dakota State University college background. I think that I think if we could get Lance, sit him for one season, and then have him take over a la Patrick Mahomes, it would be beautiful. It would be almost like my love for Jordan Love, where it would be like draft the guy, let him sit, cut Cousins, let his contract run out, and then Jordan Love takes over after he learns for a year what it's like to be in the NFL. I think Trey Lance needs that as well. Unfortunately, I don't think he's going to. If the Vikings are truly going all in on a quarterback, I don't think there's going to be sit around and wait and see. I think it's going to be you're starting from day one, or you're competing with, Jake Browning or Nate Stanley day one for the starting gig. So I really do think that Trey Lance won't. I don't even know if he'll be there for the Vikings to take him because he is being pretty hyped up. Carson Wentz coming out of the same school I think helps, and just his physical prowess. I mean, he's a stocky guy, but I don't know. He kind of scares me. Honestly, it's like Trevor Lawrence to me, and then for some reason the 2 and the 3, I don't love that much. I really like the guy that I'll talk about next, up there, rowing boats, Ski Ma. He's really intriguing to me. But the guy you're about to talk about, I want to point out, before you talk about Zach Wilson, I was laughed at when I said I wanted Zach Wilson after watching him in one game like a month and a half ago. I said, I like this kid. He throws the ball pretty well. And I was laughed at by people, my dad and my brother. And now they're talking about this kid being a first-round draft pick. And I'm just saying, I called my shot with Joe Burrow. I called my shot with Joe Burrow. So, like, Jack, I'm going to let you talk about Zach Wilson. But just know, this kid's special.
Yeah, and he's a favorite of I don't know who's all on this anymore, but me and some of my buddies have bet on him over the last couple weeks, played him in our DraftKings lineups, and he's been one of the highest scorers. Granted, he's also not playing against SEC defenses, playing out at BYU, but he's looked good, and there's been some injuries in his past that he's battled with, but this year he's looked a lot different. I was having a Twitter conversation about him today actually as well, and this could be a guy that we could potentially get in the second, third round, depending on how he finishes his season. I think right now, like you said, he's rising up a lot of draft boards, and there is a legitimate chance. I don't want to say Joe Burrow-esque because I don't think he's going to rise all the way up to winning a Heisman Trophy and winning the national championship. But there's a legitimate chance that this guy, who not that many people had probably heard about leading into this season, rises up the big boards and finds his way in the first round this year. So he's definitely a prospect worth watching. He's been on, I think it was last weekend he was on. It was a Friday night game, actually. So there's not football on Fridays, obviously, unless you're watching high school. And why not turn your TV on and watch this guy if you're a Minnesota Vikings fan? Because he's fun to watch. He's similar to all the quarterbacks that we've talked about. He's very mobile in the pocket as well. He's got a legitimate arm. I'm not going to go and say he's got the same arm talent as a guy like Trevor Lawrence or like Justin Fields, but he's very, very mobile in the pocket. Through 2020, here are his stats. I want to say, I think he's played 4 or 5 games. I don't have the number written down, but I probably should have. But through 4 or 5 games, he's completing 78.7% of his passes for 1,641 yards, 12 touchdowns to just 1 interception. Extremely athletic in the pocket. Extends his plays with his legs, something we haven't seen since Case Keenum. We didn't really see before that in Sam Bradford either. And I have it written down here. He's accurate as well. And the very last note, I have a star by it. This guy could come out and be the steal of this draft class because there's not a lot of people talking about him. I think you and I are both correct that he's going to rise up these big boards. But this could be a guy, if he falls to the second, third round and the Vikings don't have a quarterback yet, I think there's going to be a lot of angry people up here in Minnesota that they didn't take him in the second or third round as well. Granted, I don't know if he's going to drop that far, but I think this is a guy with a ton of talent, and he he's fun to watch. Just turn on a game. I don't know when they play this weekend, but flip on a game and just watch him do his thing, and it's gonna be worth your while. I promise you that.
Yeah, he doesn't have the arm talent of Trevor Lawrence, but he definitely has that he runs a West Coast offense, right? Like he's throwing the ball a lot underneath, but when he sees a shot, he takes it, and he's not overthrowing a lot of guys. And that's not a knock on his arm. He's just he's putting the ball where it needs to be. He's hitting guys in stride. He's my favorite prospect in this class, I think, and I think that might be because we could trade back into the first round to get him. And honestly, I'm fine if we can find a way to extend Ngakoue and we end up with, let's say, there's a left tackle, or there's a tackle in this class that's generational talent.
Sewell from Oregon.
Yeah, Penny Sewell or Sewell or however you pronounce his name. If we get him and then we trade back into the first and get a guy like Zach Wilson, that's a hell of a draft. I mean, don't even worry about day 2 and 3. That is a great draft already. So,
I did see a mock. I think it was a CBS mock draft today that had the Vikings picking 11th, which I think is a little bit outdated because I don't personally see the Vikings. I think, judging off the team we saw last Sunday, they're going to be picking somewhere in the top 10. And they had the Vikings reuniting Justin Jefferson with Jamar Chase. And I think similar to what you just said, you get a guy like Zach Wilson, let him sit a year behind Kirk Cousins, and then he's throwing a Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen, Irv Smith Jr., and Dalvin Cook out of the backfield. Watch out for this offense.
Yeah, you're gonna have to. If we're drafting Jamar Chase, we're firing Mike Zimmer. Let me just say that right now, because you can't have Mike Zimmer piss away Jefferson, Chase, and Thielen and Cook. He'll still, even with those weapons, he'll be like, damn it, we got to run the ball 30 times a game. We'll throw it 5 times on 5 third downs, and we'll get safetied every week. That's his game plan right now. So, moving on to another quarterback I like a lot. Can't really say what he's done this year because Big Ten football comes back on Saturday, baby. But we are talking about Tanner Morgan. Row the boat, ski ma, go Gophers. This guy is I want to say he is a redshirt junior this year. So am I correct in this? You're obviously in the Minnesota.
Red shirt junior.
Yeah,
that's
so he's
correct.
a redshirt junior. He doesn't have to come out if he doesn't want to, I believe. So he could return and play another year if he has an awful year at Minnesota. I don't foresee that happening. I think him and Bateman are going to light it up. And Tanner Morgan looks like he's about 50 years old. He's bald. He's one of those guys. He's in college and he's already bald. But I watched a film breakdown today of Tanner Morgan, and he just plays with grit. He throws with incredible anticipation. And watching him just trust his receivers. Last year, he had Tyler Johnson, who is looking pretty good in Tampa Bay, and he had Rashad Bateman, who is the first or second best wide receiver in this upcoming class. If you ask many people, he's number 2 behind Jamar Chase. Tanner Morgan is getting drilled, and he's still throwing dimes, not to the receiver, but to where the receiver's going to be after he makes a break in a route. He looks incredible in red zone situations, and he is not going to, blow you away with his speed. He's not a guy that you're going to be running read option with and watching him break 60-yard touchdowns. But I do see him, one, feel pocket pressure, which is something our quarterback can't do now, and he's a, 8-year vet. He can sense the pocket around him. He can avoid some pressure and maneuver with his legs, and then he can just lay out some dimes to some of his receivers. He plays one thing I don't like about Cousins is you see him, kind of double clinch the ball. He cocks up to throw and then he puts it back and he says, no, let's not do that. I don't see that a lot out of Tanner Morgan. Tanner Morgan knows he was playing last season with, 2 very good wide receivers who were going to have futures catching balls on Sundays. And I think he knows that. So I think you put him on the Vikings with let's not even say we draft a wide receiver, just Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen and Irv Smith and Dalvin Cook. I don't think you're going to see him double clutch a lot. I think you're going to see him really just trust his receivers. And that was a really good thing that Case Keenum did, was he just trusted Diggs and Thielen to bail him out. It was also a bad thing. It let us almost lose a game to the Washington Redskins, formally the Washington Redskins, but we got to an NFC Championship game. So what are you gonna do? I really like Tanner Morgan. He's the guy. Zach Wilson's the guy that I want to see the Vikings go after. I want to see us trade back into the first round to get him. Or even trade into the early second to get him. But I think Tanner Morgan would also be a great guy to get. There's one play, this is the last thing I'll say about the kid, there's one play where he's getting hit in the knees. And I mean, it looks like it should be a penalty. Like his knees should have just fallen off of his body. And he still just throws a dime to Rashad Bateman against the Wisconsin Badgers defense. And I watched that play, and for some reason I was just like, yeah, that kid's what we need. We need somebody who can throw the ball while they're getting hit, because you're going to be getting hit a lot in Minnesota. It just is what it is at this point. So, I really like Tanner Morgan out of Minnesota, and I'm excited to see what he's going to do this year, with this weird Big Ten schedule.
Yeah, I'm excited to watch him. Obviously, huge game against Michigan on Saturday night, which is going to be probably consume most of my Saturday. I don't have really any plans other than sitting on my couch all day and watching college football at the return of Big Ten, because I'm hoping I can watch Justin Fields' game as well. I'm not sure if that'll be on TV or not, but I'm kind of like what you said. Zach Wilson is your guy. I think Justin Fields is the guy that I'm sticking to in this draft, and I'm most hopeful that the Vikings go out and get. I'm still not overly convinced the Vikings are willing to take a quarterback in the first round, but I think there's an overall consensus where 75-80% of the fan base is starting to realize, like, regardless of what you think about Kirk Cousins, you can still think Kirk Cousins is a good quarterback, but you need to go out and you have to have something that's ready to come in and replace him, because they don't have that right now. Let someone sit behind Kirk Cousins. If you're established and you're saying Kirk Cousins is our guy for next year already as well, which I think would be a mistake in saying, you still have to go out and get somebody early, because we don't have anyone. We don't have anyone that's going to take over behind the wheel whenever Kirk Cousins does leave, and we need to find that in this 2021 draft class. And the last guy that I'm going to talk about, I would have talked about another guy, but I think you're going to talk about him. So I just kind of picked the guy on a whim because it was a name. I've watched a couple of his games already this year, and I haven't been overly excited. I don't know if he's not a guy where I would want the Vikings to take a chance on in probably the top 3 to 4 rounds, but Sam Ehlinger out of Texas, I think he is the most opposite player of Kirk Cousins that you're going to find in this draft class. He's extremely mobile. I saw somebody, I don't know if it was that Walter Football website, somebody was saying like he has a Tim Tebow side to him that you can almost compare him to that. He's 6'3", 230 pounds. And he's fascinating to watch in the run game, but his arm talent is just not fully there. And I'm not sure we're ever going to get to see him get to that next level where he should be on a starting NFL roster. But he's a fun guy to watch in college for sure. Granted, he's playing against Big 12 defenses. The Red River Showdown was last weekend, and that's where I watched him. And another quarterback who's made some mistakes, and he's not quite eligible on Oklahoma, and Spencer Rattler is another fun prospect to watch, but he's not going to be coming out now for at least another 2 years, I want to say. But he's made some mistakes as well. But Sam Ehlinger, they ended up losing that game to Oklahoma. But like I said, he's fascinating to watch. He's exciting to watch in the run game, and we've seen some quarterbacks come out of college already that have similar traits, and people say, you know what, he's not going to make it because he doesn't have the arm strength and all that. He just tune into a Texas game and watch him navigate around the pocket and think about the luxury we could have if we had a quarterback that could do something similar. Like I said, I'm not willing to put my chips in on Sam Ehlinger, but he's a fun prospect to watch, to say the least.
Yeah, I do want to bring up, since you're bringing up Spencer Rattler, who's not going to be ready to come out for like 2 or 3 years. I mean, let's just keep Cousins. Let's extend him 2 or 3 more years. Can we just tank with Cousins as the quarterback for a few years and just preemptively say, like, we would like to draft the rights to Arch Manning, because Arch Manning is playing in high school right now, but damn it, that kid's gonna be, I mean, you talk about the Trevor Lawrence hype, like he came into a game and people were like, oh yeah, this kid's gonna be Andrew Luck someday. Arch Manning is gonna Like, you know that scene in Batman, like the third Batman movie, when Bane blows up the football stadium and everybody's like, holy hell, what the heck just happened? That's going to be what happens when Arch Manning comes on out. I'm assuming for Tennessee, but he might go to Ole Miss. I don't really know. But if you're not familiar with the Arch Manning story, it is the third Manning brother's son, and he's the first one that is like eligible to play college football, and he doesn't do interviews. He hasn't been recruited at all because he won't let people recruit him. It's an interesting story. Really excited to see the Vikings not be able to draft him. Honestly, he'll probably end up going to the Jets. After they just that's actually something I'm going to bring up about the Jets ruining quarterbacks' careers. Should the Vikings maybe try and get Sam Darnold? Like, I'm not a big Sam Darnold fan. I didn't like him coming out of USC as much as I liked Baker Mayfield coming out of Oklahoma. Why not? Like, honestly, why not try and get Sam Darnold off the Jets? Say, look, we'll give you like a 7th round pick. We've got 36 7th round picks. Try and get him for super cheap and let him stout next year with a guy like Zach Wilson behind him. Zach Wilson's there at any moment if Sam Darnold's not the guy. But what if Sam Darnold is very similar to Ryan Tannehill in that it's a quarterback that everybody is saying, well, he stinks, but like Adam Gase has a history of making good quarterbacks look like ass. So like, should I think the Vikings aren't being talked about enough in that whole, hey, maybe they should go after Sam Darnold conversation, and I don't even know how I feel about it. Jack, what do you think of getting Sam Darnold?
Yeah, I saw that today, and I wasn't overly high on Sam Darnold either. I was higher on Baker Mayfield, which we might be seeing Case Keenum start again here in the near future if Baker has another game like he did last weekend against Pittsburgh. But I don't hate the idea. I don't know how it would work with the cap and everything like that. So I think it's something. I mean, I came out and said too, I wouldn't have been opposed to signing Josh Rosen either. We don't have anything behind Kirk Cousins. So I'm willing to upgrade at that backup quarterback position that could potentially turn into a long-term starter. Like you said, we saw it with Ryan Tannehill. He was kind of under the Adam Gase effect, and now look at him in Tennessee. They're playing like one of the best teams in all of football right now, and he is playing extraordinary. Last year, I wasn't willing to come out and say that Ryan Tannehill was better than Kirk Cousins. That theory is in the past. Ryan Tannehill is playing like a top 10 quarterback in the NFL right now, and I at this point, why not take a shot on Sam Darnold? I think the talent is there. He's more mobile. He has a solid arm. He's accurate. As long as he can stop getting mono, then he can come to Minnesota, I guess, because we don't need a bunch of. I mean, I guess it's not contagious like that, but I'd be all for it. I think Sam Darnold is a good quarterback that is in just a really bad system right now. We've seen so many players want to escape the Jets locker room, and I would be on board with the save Sam Darnold train.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it seems like a win-win where it's like, yeah, we pick him up. I think he has a year left on his deal, and then, the 5th-year option. So it's like we get him. We play him. If he's good, I don't know if we can then say we want his 5th-year option or if that goes away with the trade. But like, if he's good, we can say, okay, let's ride the hot hand. And if he stinks, then we get rid of him, and we have this quarterback that we just drafted in the late first, high second round that we can just commit to, and that's our future now. The Vikings are gonna have to make some type of a move to be in position, because I think that they are either going to have to overdraft a guy I think they're going to be picking right at the end of the top 10, so I think they're either going to have to overdraft one of these lower named guys who shouldn't be going in the top 10, or they're going to have to trade down, which I think is a legitimate strategy of trading down, move back in the first round, maybe trade down twice and just collect a bunch of late round picks, and then use a late first on a quarterback, and then continue to draft throughout with all of the extra picks that you've acquired. But I'll go ahead really quickly. I'll dive on one last quarterback. Well, it's not Brock Purdy out of Illinois State. I just can't get behind him for some reason, and I tried to.
Iowa State.
What did I say?
I believe Illinois. I think it's Iowa. Yeah, Iowa
that's
State.
my fault. I can't get behind him for some reason. I watched film of him, and
I agree.
he just doesn't. For some reason, he's throwing balls into double coverage, and his receiver's making a hell of a catch, and everybody's like, "Hey, he's pretty good." And I'm like, that ball is intercepted 9 times out of 10 on a Sunday, and that's not even a question. So. I will talk about somebody who I don't think the Vikings should take because he isn't mobile enough for my liking. But Kyle Trask out of Florida, go Gators, that whole thing. He's a solid prospect. I like what I see out of him, but in a lot of his highlights, it seems like he reads the defense. He does read defenses at a high level, it looks like, or at least he can look off safeties with his eyes, which is something I like to see out of a college guy. I don't like college guys who see their guy, they stare him down, and then they throw it, because that's easy to stop in the NFL. He does look around a lot. He keeps his head moving. But it seems like he'll lock on a guy, stare at him until he comes open, and then throw the ball, as opposed to just like looking and seeing like, oh, in 10 yards he's going to break open, toss the ball that way. So I think he needs some help. He needs some development. He is a senior this year. Let's see, how old is this kid? He's not very old, but...
Not to mention, too, I mean, he is throwing to probably one of the biggest freaks in this draft class in Kyle Pitts, who is an absolute stud for Florida. He's a tight end that plays the position like a wide receiver. He's 6'5", 240 pounds, and is likely going to be the top tight end off the board in this draft class.
Yeah, so he's got help. But, I mean, every quarterback, that we're talking about has help.
True.
As opposed to Zach Wilson, who is going to be the best quarterback in this class. I'm telling you now. But Kyle Trask, typical, I mean, he's in contention for the number 1 pick 12 years ago. 22 years old, 6'5", 250, big, strong arm guy, that's my quarterback. He can see over the defense and everything. It's a little bit too old school for my liking. I don't see him. I've seen him run in some touchdowns, but I mean, I've seen Cousins, do a QB draw to get a first down every now and then. So he's not exactly as mobile as I would like to see a quarterback going into the 2021 season, but he is a name to be aware of and to maybe take stock of, because I do think that there's some NFL GM who is going to fall in love with the 6'5", 250-pound kid that's been playing against SEC defenses and looking pretty good doing it. Like, it's just, it's natural. It's what everyone is attuned to seeing a quarterback look like, even though I think we're seeing now that a guy who's like 5'8" and should be playing baseball and Kyler Murray is lighting up the Dallas Cowboys on a Monday night game. So, that's my third quarterback is Trask. I do want to say about Sam Ehlinger, I think he could 100% be a Taysom Hill type. Like, you bring him in and you have him play some tight end, you have him do some of this. You can still have him throw the ball. It's pretty much, he comes in and he can do anything on the offensive side of the ball besides snap it to the quarterback. Like, you can put him at running back and he's just a decoy type player. I do think he's too athletic to not get drafted. I think he's going to go in the 4th or 5th round to somebody, and I think he would be a perfect Taysom Hill type. And knowing, I don't know why I say, oh, look, we don't play the Saints every year, but I do hate the Saints. And I'm sure they'll draft him and they'll cut Taysom Hill, and Sam Ehlinger will be throwing 90-yard touchdowns when Drew Brees can't throw the ball anymore against the Vikings in the playoffs. So, Billy, let's try and pronounce this last name. Here we go. This is the fun part of doing a live show, is you have to read people's names. Thomas Winter said cute. I don't know if you're talking about me or Jack, but I'll assume it's me. My dad is a clown as usual. Saying he's still laughing at me for the Zach Wilson take. But Billy Biskupski, again, I'm so sorry if I slaughtered that, says...
Okay, I'm going to come out and say this. He is one of the buddies that I was talking about that has been winning money on Zach Wilson.
Oh, there it is. There it is. Well, hey, you know what? Zach Wilson, I'm telling you, I'm not going to lie, Jack. My heart sunk into my chest when you said you wanted Zach Wilson, because I was like... damn it, like, it just deflated me, and I didn't want to be a dick and be like, no, I'm doing Zach Wilson. he's so damn good at football. Like and just watching him run around, like if we don't end up getting him, I'm gonna be heartbroken because I know we're gonna end up taking Kyle Trask and he's gonna be an interception machine, and then I don't know, maybe it's for the best. Maybe we end up getting Arch Manning. I don't know, but
I just saw something. I was on Twitter here as well, and it was it said NFL insiders were reporting that the ideal fit for Sam Darnold is in Minnesota. So what if I'll just throw this out here? If there's some sort of trade, is there some sort of trade where you can save the Vikings with cap space while acquiring a quarterback that could potentially turn this franchise around? I'm not saying he's going to, but he could be an upgrade over Kirk Cousins. He's younger. Obviously, he was a lot higher of a draft pick as well. What if you go out and you somehow get the Jets to eat some of Kirk Cousins' contract? They think they solved their quarterback problem. And you throw in Anthony Barr, who, hey, they wanted a year or two ago. Granted, I don't know if they would want to do that now after he did what he did to them. But if there's any sort of deal, if I'm a GM right now for the Vikings, I'm listening to calls. I'm calling other teams. I'm calling the Jets right now and seeing what it's going to take. I'm all for that. I don't know. It kind of scares me because I see a little bit of comparisons between the two, but I do think Sam Darnold is a lot more mobile than Kirk Cousins. So I say at this point, you're 1-5. Why the hell not? Take a chance on something. We rarely do that. We did it on Kirk Cousins. It was the right decision at the time. We're starting to see that it's not panning out. Take a chance. Go out. Do it right now. Pick up the phone, Rick.
Yeah, the Vikings, it comes down to this. Either find a team that wants Kirk Cousins, do not let the NFL know that they want Kirk Cousins, or they will immediately be drug tested. And then bamboozle them and be like, hey, we'll give you Kirk Cousins, and all it's going to take is 1 second-round pick, and, do a little dance, sell it to him, get the second-round pick, and then run like hell and hope the man passes his COVID physical stuff, because we know he's a COVID denial, so, like, you never know with that.
Well, you know what's going to happen when we do that, right? We're going to trade him to San Fran, and we're going to be watching him win a Super Bowl in 2 years.
I don't care. If the guy wins a Super Bowl with San Francisco, good on him. I'm just done with him. It's like, he's such a headache, and, like, I'm so sick and tired of watching him roll out to the right and seeing him cock one back and me being like, here we go, baby, let's do it. And then he throws it into quadruple coverage and it gets picked off. And I'm supposed to be surprised, even though this happens once a month. Like, he just, oh man, he really.
I'm laughing because my Twitter feed is just full of Sam Darnold and Vikings jerseys now.
I'm telling you, if we could get Cousins, the big issue is Cousins' 2022 salary becomes fully guaranteed on the third day of the league year in 2021. So you have to get rid of him either by 2021, we have to trade him, and if we cut him now, we have to pay him next year too. So I think a trade where it's like, hey, it could be a Brock Osweiler situation where we call up, who's a team that has cap space? I'm trying to think. We call up like Arizona, or we call up Dallas, and we say, hey baby, here's Riley Leaf, Kirk Cousins, and a 5th-round pick. Just give us a second. Just give us a second and take his contract and eat it. And maybe they do it. They probably don't, though, because, again, he makes so much money, and he's going to be a backup wherever we send him. But if there was a way that I could snap my fingers right now and get Sam Darnold as a replacement for Cousins and not have to pay Cousins $35 million in 2022, I'd do it in a heartbeat. I mean, I legit think the play is to cut him as soon as the season's over and just eat the dead cap next season and just eat it, but then we don't have to pay him all that money. And then we get a fresh start in 2022 where we're paying the quarterback, pennies on the dollar, and Cousins can go and he'll probably go take Drew Brees' job and win Super Bowls in New Orleans. Like, that's honestly what'll happen. We keep saying San Francisco, but my dad's saying let's get the Red Rifle Andy Dalton, who he actually really wanted coming out of college. But I feel like I'm rambling at this point. We've been live for like an hour at this point. Jack, what are your final thoughts on this quarterback draft class, on the Vikings in general?
I don't know. Like I said, I think Fields is that top guy for me, and it's not that I'm saying he's better than Trevor Lawrence. I'm saying there's a little bit more of a realistic feel to it. I think the Vikings are very much going to be picking within that top 10, just kind of after what we saw on Sunday. I mean, this is a team with so much talent. This team should not be, excuse me, this team should not be 1-5. Granted, there's a lot of injuries and the Michael Pierce opting out. You don't have Danielle Hunter. You have rookie cornerbacks. There's a lot of things. There's a lot of reasons as to why this team is 1-5 right now. And frankly, we just lost to at the time 0-5 team who had just fired their GM and fired their head coach because you know what? We dug ourselves into a hole that was too deep. Our quarterback threw 3 interceptions, had a career day. I shouldn't say career day because it was a career day in a negative way, but it was the first time he had thrown 3 interceptions in a half. Obviously, we've seen it a couple times this year where the ball escapes his hands. Say what you want. If it was a fumble, it probably wasn't a fumble the second one in Seattle, but he fumbled twice in Seattle. He's turned the ball over on several occasions throughout his career. It's become a norm. And I love Kirk Cousins as a guy. I think he was, at the time, the right decision. And like I said earlier, it's okay to think that the signing of Kirk Cousins in 2018 was the right call because the Vikings, their front office, they thought he was that piece that was missing on this offense. We needed to upgrade at the quarterback position, and then we were set. And then we saw the defense regress. We saw Stephon Diggs get traded, obviously, which we have a replacement in Justin Jefferson. But we've just saw. I think it's time where we've seen enough out of Kirk Cousins here. I think the refresh button might be good for both. And if Kirk Cousins somehow down the road wins a Super Bowl for Minnesota, I will eat these words and say, you know what, I was wrong. But I think it's time for he could get a fresh start elsewhere, and I think he could be he's still a very good quarterback. He has the caliber, of being a franchise type guy. And it's hard for me to say this because I wanted him here and I was so for the signing, but it's time for the Vikings to go out and draft a rookie quarterback this year. Whether or not they keep Cousins or not, you have to go out and you draft one of these quarterbacks because we have no one behind Kirk. So that's my final thoughts. There's some good quarterbacks in this draft class. Now the Vikings, sitting at 1-5, have all but exited from the playoff conversation. It is time to go out and draft your quarterback of the future.
Yeah, it's like you said, man. It's if Cousins somehow, is on this team next year and they win a Super Bowl, I'll gladly eat my words, but I've been saying that since the year after he got here. I was big on him for about 2 months into the 2017 season or the 2018 season, and then I bailed pretty hard. And it's not just me. I'm not going to sit here and act like, oh, I was right and everybody else was wrong. There's been a lot of people saying he was not the guy. And I think it's time that everybody is realizing he's not the guy. It's not working out. That Billy Biskupski, however you pronounce your last name, man, I agree with you. Tanner Morgan, I think, is the guy the Vikings should be looking at. I hope he has a solid first-round projection year at Minnesota, but not good enough like Joe Burrow did, where he played himself straight into the number 1 overall pick. I don't think that'll happen, but I do think he could jump Justin Fields and Trey Lance if he, plays well enough. I think getting a guy like Tanner Morgan, who also underrated stat about Tanner Morgan, or not stat, but just a fact. He plays at TCF Bank Stadium. It gets pretty chilly, playing at TCF Bank Stadium, playing in Chicago, playing in Green Bay. I think we need a quarterback who has proven that he can play outside in those elements, but I think it's time that you get a guy like Zach Wilson or Tanner Morgan. You get one of these quarterbacks. This is a historically deep quarterback class, and we just can't miss out on a guy this year. This has to be the year the Vikings take their future. It's time to get our future in the draft and keep him. God forbid any, freak leg injuries or anything like that. This guy has to be the quarterback for the next 10, 15 years. Or else we're going to be stuck in a circle of mediocrity similar to the Jets or the Dolphins have been. So that's my final thoughts. I'm going to go ahead and tell you to go give us a follow on Twitter at LTB Vikings. One more time, at LTB Vikings. And then, head on over to manscaped.com, get yourself the Lawnmower 3.0, the Weed Wacko, some, any of the great ball products. You can save 20% using the code LOADTHEBOX. You can also get yourself free shipping with the code MANSCAPEDPOD. Before I let Jack, talk us out, I just want to thank anybody who tuned in tonight to watch us live. This is a new experience for both of us. There's a reason the first 5 minutes of us being live were us like, are we actually live? Looking like a couple of grandmas trying to figure out Facebook. But thank you for bearing with me. I am starting to get a little bit of a cold or some allergies or something. I don't think it's the COVID, but we'll see, I guess. But yeah. Or the boat ski, ma, go Gophers, baby. Let's go. Let's get Tanner Morgan. Jack, you're wearing that damn back-to-back Minnesota Gophers hoodie. Get me high. Oh,
this
wait, no.
is actually where I went to college.
That's not.
Hockey.
Boo,
Duluth.
boo.
Sorry.
I literally have seen that, like, maroon and gold, and I've been.
What do you think the Gophers football team has done back-to-back that's been positive? Because it's been a while since we've had a team like this. So hopefully back-to-back.
Two good wide receivers.
That's true. I don't have much to say this week. Obviously, it's the bye week. Listen to Jordan. Go follow us on Twitter. Check out all of our shows that we've done in the past. If you tune in for the first time, appreciate it. Head over to Manscaped as well. Awesome products. I don't have any take us out speech. The Vikings just came off one of the most embarrassing losses that I remember in the last several years. And it's a bye week. So enjoy watching other teams find success while Minnesota teams cannot. Hopefully the Gophers can prevail on Saturday night and come out with a win. And most importantly, regardless of how this team plays, I'm always